Okay, so leverage, or capital gearing ratio. Now, you see, a company is normally financed by the owner or other third parties. Okay, in other words, a business gets its capital either from the owner or from borrowing. Okay, you either borrow to invest in your business or you use your own personal savings to invest in your business. So it's either capital or long-term borrowing. So the leverage ratios wants to compare these two sources of funding for the business, right? The funds that is coming from the owner and the funds that is coming from third parties, that's the borrowings. Why are we interested in this? We are interested in this because the mix of what is coming from the owner and what is coming from third parties in terms of borrowings determine the interest payment and the returns the borrowers and the owners can make from the business. Okay, let me cite an example. If your family is living on funds from the members, right, more than what they borrow from outside, then fairly you say such a family is a decent one, right? But a family where little is coming from the members, in fact, virtually everything is coming from borrowing. You seem to say, oh, why is this family borrowing a lot and always accruing debt onto themselves, right? So the same applies to businesses. If your capital is coming from, lenders or borrowers, oh, sorry, I think I should use lenders instead of borrowers, right? If majority of your capital is coming from lenders, then it means you are going to be paying huge interest at the end of the period, and this has a consequence on your profit, right? So on the other side, if the money is coming from the owners or shareholders, then it means that, well, we don't need to pay fixed interest. We just need to make use of the resources and pay them some dividend. And as you know, dividends normally are declared when there is profit, except when you own a certain type of share, which is the preference share, where a particular type of preference share, even if you make losses, you have to consider them in the next period when you make profit, right? So that's a bit about the leverage ratio. It is looking at the mix of capital from the owners and capital from lenders or money from borrowing. Okay. So the ratios under this type of ratio is one, the capital gearing ratio. So it reflects how much a debt of a firm has in relation to its equity, and it serves as a gauge of its financial risk. So what we are saying here is that this type of ratio is looking or is comparing long-term debts, okay, to what is coming from the owners. So it compares the money coming from the owners versus the money coming from lenders, okay. And in a way, it helps us or it helps the business to gauge its financial risk. So if you're an investor, right? If you're an investor and, for example, you are going to invest in a business that has more borrowing or has more debt, then I think you'd prefer to give such a business loan rather than going in as a shareholder. Okay, because in the principle of settlement, we settle creditors and lenders before we attend to shareholders, right? So if you're an investor, these are some of the things that you can use to decide as to whether you want to invest as a shareholder or as a debt holder. Okay. The second one is debt to equity. So it is also calculating the overall debt of the business in relation to the capital the owners have really invested. Okay. Then we have the interest cover. The interest cover, the name suggests that we want to see if the business can be able to pay interest on its debt, right? So if you're a debt holder and you assess the interest cover of the business and it's not so good, then I think you take a decision yourself. Okay. Then let's look at the last one, which is the investment ratio. The name should suggest to you that it's going to give metrics that will help us assess if a business is investable or not, right? So there are financial ratios that assist investors to make better judgment of the value and quality of investing. Okay. So one of them is the earnings per share. Earnings per share, right? It measures the ability of the business to generate net profit for ordinary shareholders. So if you're an ordinary share, ordinary shareholders are the true owners of a company. Preference shares per the standards are more or less like creditors, right, to the business. So the true owners of a company are the ordinary shareholders, right? So they would want to know how much they can earn per the share they hold to be able to make a decision. The next one is we have the dividend yield, okay, and then dividend per share. So dividend per share, I think dividend as the returns on shares, right? If you have a share in a company at the end of the period, you receive a dividend if there are profit. So you want to know how much you can earn per your share. Okay. Then the last one is price earning ratio. Price earning ratio. So this one compares the market price of the share to the earnings from the share. Let me use MTN as an example. When MTN floated shares for the general public to subscribe, I think it was it 75 pesos? Yes, I want to believe so. It was 75 pesos. So that was the market price of that MTN shares. Recently, I heard of some dividend payment from MTN. I'm not too sure, right? So when you compare that market price or how much they sold the shares to how much they are paying as earnings to the shareholders, that's the price earning ratio. To the best of my knowledge, these ratios were being examined during SSC, but WASI they cut down on these things because they look a bit technical in their computations. So my dear student, don't worry yourself much about it. Just understand them for maybe objective test or anything. But for the practical, take my word for it. The ratios we discuss, i.e. the profitability, liquidity, activity, should be your concern. Okay. Any questions on what I've just said, and then we'll move on.